So picture this scenario. You open up your newsfeed, right?
Right.
And there is this brilliant 20-something founder right on the cover of a major business magazine. I mean, they are being hailed as an absolute visionary.
Oh, yeah, the next big thing. We see it all the time.
Exactly. But then you fast forward like 18 months, and that exact same person is facing federal fraud charges. Their company is completely bankrupt, and, their investors are out billions of dollars.
It's crazy. And it feels like we literally see a version of this story every single week now.
We really do. But then if you contrast that with someone else in the exact same industry, they aren't on the magazine covers. They're just quietly, methodically building an empire that grows year over year for like 3 decades. Why does that happen?
Well, it is honestly one of the most compelling dynamics in human behavior. And when we witness those spectacular overnight collapses, our default human instinct is to look for an external cause.
Right, like we look for something to blame.
Exactly. We assume the market shifted dramatically, or a competitor outmaneuvered them, or they just simply ran out of good luck. We almost always blame the circumstances rather than looking inward.
But today, we are taking a deep dive into a set of sources that just completely rejects that external blame narrative.
Yeah, totally rejects it.
We are unpacking a framework called VictoryWithAsh, specifically focusing on their foundational series, which is titled The Character of a Winner.
It's such a good series.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to get into the actual mechanics, like the underlying psychology of what sustains long-term success. Because if you are listening to this right now, I know you're driven.
For sure, you wouldn't be listening otherwise.
Right. You want to acquire new skills, earn that next certification, maybe master the latest productivity hack. But this material argues that we spend so much time building our skill set, we completely neglect the psychological and moral infrastructure required to handle the success those skills eventually bring.
And that is the pivotal shift this framework demands. I mean, the core philosophy of Victory with Ash points out something incredibly stark.
Which is what?
Well, when people fail spectacularly, it is rarely due to a lack of intelligence, and it is almost never due to a lack of initial opportunity.
Wow. Okay. So why do they fail?
They fail because they lack the clarity, structure, and internal accountability to manage the pressure of that opportunity.
The pressure.
Right. Talent and intelligence might be the engine that gets you to the starting line, but character is the chassis that keeps the car from falling apart at 200 miles per hour.
I love that. And to illustrate why that internal infrastructure matters so much, the source material uses a really specific analogy that I think is brilliant. They ask you to imagine 2 newly constructed buildings.
Yes, the 2 buildings story.
So the first building is this absolute masterpiece of modern architecture. It has gorgeous glass facades, breathtaking curb appeal. Everyone stops to take pictures of it.
It's the one that gets all the attention.
Exactly. But the second building, right next door, is purely utilitarian. Simple brick, nothing flashy. But then a massive, unprecedented storm hits the city.
And we all know what happens next.
Right. The beautiful building completely shatters and collapses because its foundation was laid shallow and cheap. But the simple building, it remains standing without a scratch because its foundation was anchored deep into bedrock.
It is a classic metaphor for a reason, because in our culture, people always notice and reward the talent first.
Always.
Talent is that glass facade. It's charismatic, it looks great on a resume, and it attracts funding. But life, markets, and just human relationships will eventually test your internal structure.
The storm is coming, basically.
The storm is not a possibility. It is an absolute certainty.
That makes me think of this in terms of modern technology.
Oh, how so?
Well, it's like building a beautiful viral app with a stunning user interface. It might get 1 million downloads on its first day because it looks so good.
Yeah, the front end is perfect.
Yeah, exactly. But if the back-end servers, like the foundation, are poorly coded and lack bandwidth, the app completely crashes the second those 1 million users try to actually log in.
That is a perfect parallel.
Right. Talent gets you the downloads. But your back-end servers, which represent your character, those are the only things that keep you online under heavy traffic.
That tech analogy actually captures the mechanism perfectly.
Yeah.
Because skills and talent are your user interface, right? They open doors and create that initial engagement.
Yeah.
But the source material emphasizes that character is your operating system. It quietly dictates every single decision you make under stress, every conversation you have behind closed doors, and honestly, how you handle power when you finally get it.
And if your back-end servers are weak,
trust inevitably breaks down.
Yeah.
And once trust breaks down, the relationships sever, and the opportunities just evaporate.
So if character is our back-end server, how do we actually upgrade it? Because it is incredibly easy to just tell someone, hey, go be a good person with a strong foundation.
Right, which isn't very helpful.
No, that's a bumper sticker, not a strategy. But the Victory framework provides a concrete 3-step blueprint for this upgrade, which is rise, reset, and refocus.
And to understand why this blueprint works, we have to understand the paralysis it's designed to cure. The text notes something profound about human development. It says, growth is rarely an information problem. Growth is usually an implementation problem.
The implementation gap, we all fall into it.
We really do. I mean, we have unprecedented access to information today. Most people know exactly what they need to do to improve their lives, yet they remain totally paralyzed by information overload and just a lack of clear direction.
So the first step to crossing that gap is rise. Now, I have to be honest, when I first read the word rise, my immediate reaction was, okay, this sounds like typical motivational fluff.
Yeah, rise and grind, right?
Exactly. Every self-help guru tells you to rise and grind. What makes this an actual psychological mechanism in this framework and not just a catchphrase?
It becomes a mechanism when you look at what you are actually rising above.
Yeah.
It is not about waking up earlier. It is a fundamental cognitive shift where you stop settling for the path of least resistance. You make a deliberate, conscious choice to face friction rather than avoid it.
Because our brains naturally want to avoid that.
Totally. The brain naturally seeks comfort and avoids pain. So rising is the specific moment you override that biological default and choose responsibility over comfort.
Wow, okay. That leads us right into the second step, which is reset. And this is where I think people get really defensive.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when someone hears the word reset, they instantly picture like a factory reset on their phone where they lose all their photos and contacts. They think it means burning their current life down and starting from zero. How do you reset without destroying the good things you've already built?
Well, that fear of loss is exactly why people avoid changing in the first place. But the framework defines a reset not as a demolition, but as a deliberate realignment.
A realignment.
Think about clearing the cache on your internet browser. You aren't throwing the computer away or deleting the operating system. You are simply removing the accumulated invisible junk data that is secretly slowing your processing speed.
I really like that. Clearing the behavioral cache.
Exactly. A psychological reset involves intentionally identifying your limiting beliefs and destructive habits, and then systematically pruning them. You literally cannot build a sustainable future if you are dragging all the dysfunctional coping mechanisms of your past along with you. The reset clears the RAM.
It clears the RAM and frees up the processing power necessary for the third step, which is refocus. And this is vital because, honestly, modern life is basically a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure designed to harvest your distraction.
It's an attention economy, and focus is the mechanism that creates momentum. When you are distracted, your energy is scattered across dozens of superficial tasks.
Meaning you make, what, like 1 millimeter of progress in 100 different directions?
Precisely. Refocusing requires ruthlessly directing your attention toward high-leverage activities. Because, as the text argues, where attention goes, results inevitably follow.
Okay, so we've cleared the cache, we've focused our attention, and we have the solid foundation of rise, reset, and refocus. Then we need to look at the actual code we are writing onto these server.
The core values.
Yes. The VictoryWithAsh material outlines 6 core values that constitute a winner's character. And the absolute bedrock, like the base code, is integrity.
And, integrity is a term that gets thrown around so much it has almost lost its meaning.
Yeah, people just equate it with being generally honest.
Right. But the framework provides a very rigorous definition here. Integrity is doing the right thing specifically when no one is watching.
Which is cognitively the hardest time to do it. Because, when I'm in public, my good behavior is subsidized by my desire to look good to others.
Exactly. When an audience is present, your behavior is motivated by reputation management. But when you are alone, your behavior is motivated entirely by your internal standards.
That makes so much sense.
And the mechanics of this are fascinating. Lying or cutting corners actually carries a really heavy cognitive load.
Oh, because you have to remember the lies.
Yes, you have to remember which version of the truth you told to which person. So operating with strict integrity is incredibly efficient because it frees up all that mental energy. It establishes a baseline of internal trust.
I love that idea of efficiency, but here's the thing about having that secure internal baseline. It doesn't do you any good if you can't interact with the outside world.
No, it doesn't.
Right, like if integrity is your secure server, you still need an API to connect with others. And that brings us to the next vital concept in the framework, which is dependability.
Dependability is how your internal integrity actually manifests to other people. It means becoming someone others can completely, without any hesitation, rely upon.
So doing what you say you'll do.
Right. It's the habit of honoring your word, meeting your deadlines, and actually finishing what you initiate.
I always try to visualize dependability as a compounding interest account for your professional and personal reputation.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, because every single time you keep a commitment, even if it's just showing up to a Zoom call exactly on time, you are making a tiny deposit of trust.
The deposit, right.
And over years, that trust compounds, and suddenly you are handed massive opportunities that seem to just come out of nowhere. But breaking a promise, that's a massive withdrawal with severe penalty fees attached.
That compounding effect is very, very real. Highly reliable people reduce anxiety for everyone around them. When a manager or a partner or an investor knows they can count on you, you become indispensable.
And what's the action step here for the listener?
The suggested action here is remarkably simple but profoundly effective. Complete one task you start today, no matter how trivial it is.
Just one small thing.
Yes, because it physically trains your brain's reward system to associate finishing tasks with positive reinforcement.
Okay, so we are secure and we are reliable. But eventually, no matter how dependable you are, something is going to break.
It always does.
A project will fail, a deadline will be missed. How you handle that failure dictates whether your foundation cracks. Which means we have to talk about accountability.
And this is where the framework demands a massive identity shift. We are moving from excuses to responsibility.
Right.
Accountability is the total ownership of your choices, rather than blaming your circumstances. You have to move your locus of control from the outside world back to yourself.
Okay, I have to push back here, though, because this sounds incredibly empowering in a vacuum. But what happens when circumstances genuinely are terrible?
That's a fair question.
Like, what if a global pandemic shuts down your industry? Or you get laid off due to corporate mismanagement? Telling someone in that situation to take accountability borders on toxic positivity, doesn't it? It feels a little like victim blaming.
That is a crucial distinction to make. The framework is not asking you to take the blame for a macroeconomic crisis or a hurricane. That would be completely irrational.
Right. Obviously, you didn't cause the hurricane.
Exactly. True accountability isn't about claiming you caused the storm. It is about taking absolute ownership of how you rebuild after the storm passes.
Ah, wow. Okay.
Blaming the economy might be factually accurate, and it certainly feels comforting in the short term, but it is psychologically paralyzing. If the problem is entirely external, you have surrendered all your agency to fix it.
You're just waiting to be saved.
Yes, the exact second you accept responsibility for your response, you reclaim your power.
You reclaim your power. That is the mechanism. It isn't about guilt, it's about agency. But having agency means nothing if you just sit on the couch feeling very empowered and accountable, right? You actually have to move.
You do.
And that requires action, the next piece of the puzzle.
Because without execution, the best intentions in the world are just electrical signals fading in your brain. This requires another huge identity shift. Moving from knowledge to action?
Yes, from knowledge to action.
Dreams only materialize through consistent physical action.
But let's look at the implementation gap again. Why do so many smart people, like the people listening to deep dives like this, reading all the books, gathering all this knowledge, why do they stay completely frozen? What is the psychology behind having all the data but taking zero action?
Well, it's a brilliant biological trick our brains play on us. We often use the acquisition of knowledge as a highly sophisticated form of procrastination.
Wait, really? Learning is procrastination.
Yes. When you read a business book or listen to an analysis, your brain releases dopamine, making you feel incredibly productive. But you haven't actually risked anything.
Oh, wow. That hits hard.
Taking action means risking failure, which triggers the amygdala, the fear center of the brain. The framework's solution to this is vital. It's small, consistent actions.
Because a tiny action sneaks past the amygdala without setting off the fear alarms.
Exactly. You do not need to take massive, heroic leaps that terrify you. You take one small, meaningful step, and you repeat it tomorrow. Consistency will always beat intensity over a long enough timeline.
All right, so now we are moving, we have momentum, we are taking daily action. But how do we know we aren't just running in circles? We could be aggressively sprinting in the completely wrong direction.
Right. which happens all the time.
To ensure our momentum actually matters, we need big thinking.
Big thinking is the ability to widen your cognitive aperture. It is very easy to get trapped in the microscopic details of the daily grind, constantly putting out immediate fires.
Just reacting to emails all day.
Yes. Big thinking forces you to expand your vision beyond your current, perhaps limiting circumstances. Every great achievement started as a bold vision.
It prevents your present reality from putting a ceiling on your future potential. If you are listening to this, the action step for you is to evaluate your current goals. If your goals don't make you slightly uncomfortable, they are probably just maintenance tasks, not actual growth targets.
That's a great point.
And interestingly, the sources emphasize that big thinking isn't just about accumulating more wealth or status for yourself. It is about expanding your capacity to serve others. How does your growth actually benefit your community?
Which naturally leads us to the final value, because you cannot serve others or expand your horizon if you think you already know everything. The final component is teachability.
Staying a student for life. But I imagine this gets exponentially harder the more successful you become, right?
Oh, absolutely.
When you are the expert, admitting you don't know something feels like a threat to your identity.
It is the ultimate paradox of expertise. The more competence you build, the more rigid your thinking can become if you aren't careful. Teachability is the feedback loop that keeps the entire system functioning.
It's the software update.
Exactly. It requires profound humility to accept constructive criticism and to admit that your current operating system might need an update. The moment arrogance sets in and you believe your learning phase is over, your growth phase immediately terminates.
So let's look at the architecture we've just built. We have integrity, ensuring our internal code is clean; dependability, allowing us to interface with others; accountability, giving us the agency to handle errors; action, generating forward momentum; big thinking, ensuring we're heading toward a meaningful horizon; and teachability, keeping our system constantly updating.
That's a complete system.
Yeah, this isn't just a checklist you stick on your fridge. The sources are describing a complete metamorphosis of how a person operates in the world.
It is a sequence of profound identity shifts. If you adopt this framework, you are fundamentally rewiring your priorities. You transition from chasing the dopamine of temporary success to constructing the deep satisfaction of lasting success.
Temporary to lasting.
Wow, you stop relying on the fragile promise of your raw potential, and you start forging the unbreakable reality of your character. Ultimately, you turn abstract floating dreams into grounded daily discipline.
And one of the most critical elements of Ash Mufarah's philosophy is that you cannot execute this metamorphosis in a vacuum. You do not build world-class character while sitting alone in a dark room.
No, human beings are highly social creatures, and this is where the neuroscience of your environment becomes absolutely critical. We have mirror neurons in our brains that literally simulate and adopt the behaviors, standards, and emotional states of the people around us.
It's like secondhand smoke for your mindset.
That is a perfect analogy.
If you are constantly sitting in a room full of people who complain, make excuses, and cut corners, you are breathing in those low standards. Eventually, your own foundation will start to rot, no matter how much willpower you think you have.
That is an incredibly accurate way to frame it. Conversely, if you immerse yourself in a growth-minded community, your transformation is wildly accelerated. You passively absorb their high standards of accountability.
And they keep you moving.
Exactly. Their momentum pulls you forward on the days your own discipline falters. Your environment is the invisible architect of your behavior.
So as we bring this deep dive to a close, I want to challenge you, yes, you listening right now, to actively engage with what we've just unpacked. Don't let this be another dopamine hit of unapplied knowledge. Don't just fall into the implementation gap. Right. Pause for a second and evaluate your own foundation. Out of integrity, dependability, accountability, action, big thinking, and teachability, which one is currently your weakest link? Where is the crack in your concrete? Identify it, and then define one microscopic, practical action you can take to reinforce that specific value today, not next week. Today.
That is the perfect place to start.
If you want to join the Victory with Ash community, use the link available in the description. Growth becomes more meaningful when we develop both our skills and our character alongside a supportive community.
Thank you for patiently listening to this episode. I appreciate your time, your attention, and your commitment to becoming a better version of yourself. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep moving forward.
The strongest foundation for any successful life is a character that remains faithful to its values, even when no one is watching.
Next time you see a successful person, making headlines for the wrong reasons. Ask yourself, were you admiring a beautiful exterior, or did you ever check the foundation?